Greetings and welcome to A Contemplative Reader, where we will explore various kinds of literature with an eye towards the mysterious, the spiritual, the mystical, and the otherworldly. As I'm beginning this channel, I thought I would do the Booktube Newbie tags so you can get an idea who I am and what you might be able to expect from this channel. So here are the questions. Number one, why did you start this channel? Well, primarily just to make friends who enjoy books, various kinds of books, and who enjoy going deep into the meaning of books. I spend a lot of my time in rural Iowa. I live in western Iowa, in the heartland of the United States, and it's difficult to find folks who enjoy having those kinds of discussions and reading those kinds of books. So I thought Booktube might be a good place to have that kind of community and find people with like minds who enjoy digging deeper into various kinds of literature. Number two, what are some fun and unique things that you can bring to Booktube? Well, number one, although I'm not a farm boy anymore, I am an Iowa farm boy. Grew up on a farm with corn and soybeans and hogs. So when I grew up reading books like the Book of Three from the Chronicles of Prydain by Lloyd Alexander, with the primary protagonist being Taran, the assistant pig keeper, I can sympathize with that. And a lot of books, particularly fantasy, that's set in the medieval times or more ancient times, built around an agrarian society, and I know a lot about agriculture, so that might be something I might be able to bring to Booktube. Number two, like I said, I'm not an Iowa farm boy anymore, although I still live in Iowa. It's because I went to law school, and for 30 years I've been an attorney, although now I am mostly retired from the practice of law, but I bring that eye to various kinds of literature and that kind of close critical thinking skills that hopefully I learned from being a lawyer over the years. I am mostly retired from being a lawyer now because I have a different vocation now, and that is the third thing that I think is perhaps unique that I might bring to Booktube, is that I am now for the past 14 years, I have been a pastor in the Lutheran tradition that I grew up in here and was ordained. And so I bring that to the table, but in addition to that, I have a particular interest in what I would call ancient and contemplative, mystical, and monastic forms of spirituality, which a lot of times come from the Roman Catholic or the Eastern Orthodox traditions, and from other world religions as well, which I've enjoyed studying. I have gone on and I have just received a master's degree from the Byzantine Catholic Seminary, which had a deep focus on that kind of spirituality. I did spiritual direction training from Benedictine sisters in a monastery in Yankton, South Dakota, and have had experience in that tradition for some time. And I spent a lot of time in various monasteries over the past several years. So I have a particular eye for that kind of thing. And it's amazing how when I read various kinds of literature, not fiction, whether fantasy, sci-fi, or general fiction, I notice those kinds of themes and those kinds of influences cropping up. And so when in this channel, I think I'm going to be talking about those influences that I see in various kinds of literature. Number four, why do I love reading? Well, I think it is a way of traveling the world, traveling throughout space and time without ever leaving home. And again, for an Iowa farm boy, that's a pretty important thing. What book or series got you into reading? Well, there are a variety of things that I read as a youth. I read things like Little House on the Prairie as a small child. I read the Oz books by L. Frank Baum, Wizard of Oz, but there are several books after that in this series, but there are really two book series as I got a little bit older into my middle school, high school years, teenage years, that I enjoyed reading all the way back in the early to mid 1980s, and I still have copies of it, of course. No big surprise, perhaps, Lord of the Rings. So we have here The Hobbit and my copy of The Fellowship of the Ring, which, of course, you can see is a little bit beat up over the years, Two Towers, and of course, The Return of the King. And the other series, I'm not going to put all 12 books up in front of you, but would be another classic form of fantasy in the sword and sorcery genre would be Conan the Barbarian, in the books put together by L. Sprague de Camp and Lynn Carter, bringing the books of Robert E. Howard to a new audience there in the 70s and 80s. And of course, I was reading the comic books at that time too, and I did read a lot of comics back then. So what questions would I ask my favorite booktubers is the next question. Again, I enjoy a variety of different kind of booktubers. Favorites would happen to include ones that were familiar to booktubers who watch Fantasy Booktube, which would be Philip Chase and A.P. Canavan of A Critical Dragon. What I think I would ask them in particular, given their academic backgrounds and their backgrounds in critical analysis of books and literature. I don't have that particularly, but again, as a lawyer for 30 years and someone who's gone on to graduate level work in theology and spirituality, I'm used to close readings of books and critically thinking about books. And so I'm just kind of wondering, well, how do you set that aside and just enjoy a book for what it is and just enjoy the experience of reading? I think I can do that, but it's a challenge sometimes to set aside that critical eye. So if you have any tips on that, I'd appreciate it. Number 7, what challenges do you think starting a Booktube channel will be hardest to overcome? Well, for me, it will be focus, keeping on track, keeping a regular schedule of reading and recording. And then technology. I'm probably going to be one of the older booktubers out there. But fortunately, my middle child is now in a video editing program in college, and so he will be helping me. And I'll be appreciating his help as an older booktuber for sure. Next question, why did you start reading? Or when did you start reading? Well, I started reading at a very early age. Again, it was growing up kind of by myself in a remote rural part of Iowa, and that's what I had to do. There was not even VCRs then to watch recordings of movies or TV shows. We got a few basic TV channels, so reading was really what we had to do. So I was reading really before I got to school, some very early picture books and that kind of thing. Number 9, where do you read? I read in a variety of places. I read in the office. I read at home. I read through audiobooks. I drive a lot throughout western Iowa and in the region, so I do spend a lot of time listening to podcasts, listening to Booktube videos, and reading audio books, if you call that reading. And I do call that reading, actually. I know there's some discussion about that. And finally, what kinds of books do you enjoy reading? Well, I've talked about that already. Again, fantasy and sci-fi go back a long ways. Another other book series that I didn't talk about before. I was in that age in the 70s and 80s where Star Wars and Star Trek were the big things. So I read a lot of tie-in fiction in those series as well. So I enjoy reading all of that. I enjoy reading history. I enjoy reading various kinds of theological works as well from a variety of different traditions, again, but with an eye towards the contemplative, the mystical, the monastic kinds of spirituality. So I hope that this has helped you get to know me a little bit better. I look forward to reading along with you and discussing all of these kinds of books with you as I begin this channel. So as I will conclude each video, thanks for watching. Peace be with you.